All right, here we go. The word of the day is the power of fewer things. You agree? Here we go. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's do it.
It's 9 o'clock. You're listening to my daddy, Mikey, right here on Decatur FM. Hey, Mikey, who are you interviewing tonight? I love you, Daddy.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie. We are Decatur FM. We are any and everything Decatur. Thank you so much for listening tonight, guys. And I'll tell you, tonight, boy, do I have an interview that you are going to love. The entire neighborhood is definitely going to love this one. Not to mention, Rowan's going to love this one because the person that I have sitting here is an amazing human. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you the history. So the individual is sitting with me today. His name is Fred Rowan, and I'll give you some history on him. This gentleman actually joined Carter's, which if you've been on the moon for the past adolescence and teenage years of your life, you'll definitely know what brand I'm talking about. He joined Carter's in 1992 as a president and chief executive officer. He became chairman of the board in October of 1996. And prior to joining Carter's, Mr. Rowan right here, I call him Fred, and you can too. He was the group vice president of VF Corporation. If you don't know what VF Corporation is, it's a multi-divisional apparel company. All right. And among other positions, he also served as the president and chief executive officer of both Lee Jeans, we all know Lee Jeans really well, as well as Bassett Walker Inc. and Jan Sport. And I still have my Jan Sport backpack, for those of you who don't know. Those were also divisions of VF Corporation. He began his career at DuPont Corporation and later joined Eileen Inc., a manufacturer of women's apparel, ultimately becoming the chief operating officer. Carter's is currently a leading company and a publicly held company in the U.S. for apparel for youngsters, with primarily products which include newborn clothing, sleepwear, and playwear. Carter's markets its items under Carter's, Oshkosh Bagosh, we all know it well, and Child of Mine, Just 1 Year, and Genuine Kids brands in department and specialty stores. I'd like to welcome him to Decatur FM. I'd like to welcome Fred Rowan. How are you, Fred?
Good, thank you.
Thank
Mike.
you so much for doing this interview.
It's great to be with
Oh,
you.
I'm so excited that you did this. And so everybody knows, I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag. He is also my father-in-law. So Rowan should be happy because that's our granddaddy sitting right across from me. So I'm excited to sit and talk with you tonight, and I'm excited to introduce everybody to in the neighborhood to you and basically some of the great things that you've done over your career. So I'm stupidly stoked about this. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mike.
Let's start by doing this. Why don't you tell everybody where you're from?
I'm from, I was born in Stanton, Virginia, and I was raised in Waynesboro, Virginia, a nearby community.
Uh-huh.
And I went to school at a military school during my high school years in Waynesboro.
Okay.
And I went to East Tennessee State University for a degree in economics. Mm-hmm. And I went to the Harvard Business School in the early 80s.
Wow. That's cool. But then you also told me, we were talking earlier, you're like, but technically I'm from everywhere.
Yeah, that's what my wife and I say. We are from everywhere. We've lived in 22 homes, seven states, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So we're comfortable anywhere.
So you went to various different schools in Virginia. You went to Harvard Business School as well, right? So with all that being said, my question is, what made you decide to choose the career path of being a CEO and what we would call a turnaround specialist CEO? What made you go down that path?
Well, it was a while after I got in business that I wanted to be a turnaround specialist because I had a lot to learn. Mm. But I guess what really prompted all this was when I was with DuPont, I got to know the plant manager there, and that was a prestigious position. And I so admired him, his leadership skills and the way he ran the railroad, so to speak. He left DuPont and joined an apparel company. and he asked me to go with him,
Wow.
which was a big deal to me in those days. I was a really young guy. And so I did join him. And then, oddly enough, he got fired, and I stayed there for a couple more years, and then got recruited. I guess, you build a reputation. How you do it over time, I don't know. But I got recruited away from a place called Roanoke Fashions to Eileen. And so I spent about 12 years with Eileen running their operations, eventually being the chief operating officer. So I can't put it, one thing prompted me to do what I did. Just I love leading people. When I was at Fishburne Military, I was a youngster, and I learned real quickly, 16 years old, that I could lead people.
Wow.
So whenever somebody was recruiting me, I'd say, I'm a really good leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was true. Now, I learned a lot more after that.
Right.
It's been many, many years on a learning curve, but I just stayed in the industry and was recruited 2 or 3 different times.
Yeah.
And it was very evolutionary.
It
wasn't any grand design that I was,
made to do it.
If I got an opportunity and I liked it, I took it.
Yeah. That's a good way.
Yeah.
If it felt right in your
And
gut.
my wife was comfortable moving, we liked moving, and so it was not a struggle.
I tend to, every time I sit down with everybody in the studio, and for tonight, just so everybody knows that I'm actually on location. We're not in the studio tonight. We're in a way cooler place than the Decatur FM studio. We came up to hang out with Fred at his location. But I will say this. One of the things that I always do is I always pick like a theme when I'm doing an interview. And one of the theme that I decided to pick for this particular sit down was called brand building, the power of fewer things, getting inside the mind of a CEO. Reason being is I ran across an article actually a few weeks ago that you would say it covered pretty much the topics of, what does it take to tell a good story for a brand, and what is a chief executive officer's real role when it comes to storytelling? And no better person that I thought of could have helped me, sit down and actually get to the meat of this topic than Fred here. So that is pretty much going to be the theme of what we're talking about tonight. And I'm going to start off the conversation by asking him, one of the things that my wife, his daughter, Sarah, and I have always talked about, and I don't think I ever mentioned this to you. We were walking around, we went to New York one time, and as we were walking around Times Square, I think it was, I was looking around all these people around us, and I looked at her and I said, does it freak you out that your dad had influence on so many people that are their childhood, their kids' childhoods, right? And she never really thought about it. And I said, that's a pretty powerful thing to think about. Like the fact that you helped build a brand, made it really, really simple, right? And everybody has this emotional connection to it. Now, that wasn't always the case with Carter's or most of these companies that you actually jumped in on. Some of them were in a great deal of trouble, right? So
Carter's was in bad shape.
Bad shape.
Yeah, all of them were in bad shape. Most of them were a year away from extinction.
Right. So you were deemed this turnaround specialist, this person that would come in with a team and essentially give or call the plays on how to go from red to black or how to go from good to great. I mean, we can go on and on and on with the terminologies. To start off the interview, I want to ask you, as a turnaround specialist, though, tell me, what was the approach? Like, you walk into a company that is, like you said, a year away from extinction. Where do you start, right? How do you end up helping change these companies to go from good to great? That's a loaded question, but
no, it's
figured it'd be a great way to start.
I had a formula that I had developed over time on how to deal with companies that are in trouble. I never went to a company that didn't have a great brand. First of all, that's a big plus.
Yeah.
If you have notoriety or brand awareness with the consumer, mothers and fathers, grandparents, you've got an edge up. So, and I went with companies that had a pretty good second level of management. Always a bad top management.
Yeah.
You know, everything starts at the top.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of them end at the top.
Yeah.
So Carter's in particular was very weak at the top. But I would meet with everybody in the company. I'd start day one, meet with every supervisor in the company and all the people in small groups until I got through all of them. At that time, it may have been 1,500 people.
Wow.
And I would sit in small groups, and I would introduce, of course, myself, but I'd also talk about my team who had accompanied me on all these things. 4 or 5 of us went to 5 different companies over 20 years and applied the same formula everywhere. And then they would meet with their people. And what I would tell them is how much I admired their history,
Yeah.
but they were in trouble. And that's why I was there, is to help them get out of trouble. Most turnaround specialists have a bad reputation of going in and slashing overhead and jobs, you know, knocking people out of work. We had an opposite strategy, was to build the company, turn it around in the right direction,
Yeah.
not the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Now I got rid of the top people fast, and they were the impediment, you know, to really get the job done. But talking to everybody and saying, look, I'm here to help you. I'm here to do this thing as a team. We're not dictators. You know, we don't have a penchant for just slashing jobs. If there's a job that's not necessary, of course we would, but we didn't have that reputation. We were growers.
Yeah.
And but you had to tell them, and of course you have to prove it over time. Talk is cheap, you know, unless you perform. But communications is so critical, and most people are so bad at it.
Yeah.
You know, they just come in and railroad people and don't have any dialogue. So our style of management was collaborative. We debated a lot of things, including, you know, a lot of people in the company.
Yeah.
Not just the 4 or 5 of us. You know, we did a lot. We had a lot that we knew to do. But we really recognized the need for getting everybody to buy into it.
Sure.
And it always turns out better that way.
Yeah.
It's a harder way to do it because you really got to listen to people. You got to spend time with them and hear them out. And you've got to make some changes that they recommend.
Sure.
Not just for the hell of it, but you recommend them because they've got good ideas.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
absolutely. It does. But I think, you know.
But it's a fun way of doing it.
Sure.
Instead of arduous.
Yeah. But, you know, one of the things that you just said, though, talking about communication, right? How much of the communicating to the internal staff as well as externally, you know, your customers, meaning your retailers, your actual consumers, you know, we talk about, and you've been a great mentor to me and, you know, to Sarah and the whole family as far as when it comes to running a business and how you attack life. How important is the internal brand story that was told when you came in? Like, you know, we're in trouble. Here's where we need to be, and here's the story we need to tell moving forward in order for us to survive internally and then obviously externally, you know, when it comes to setting everything into place in order to go from that good to great. How important was that story that you were telling to the staff before you made these changes, and then once those changes were made, to the outside world?
Well, we told the story to everybody.
Right.
We told them to the people in the company, and how proud we were of that,
Right.
and that they should be proud too. But they had troubles.
Right.
You know, we didn't beat around the bush and say, "Hey, it's a bed of roses."
Right.
It wasn't. Carter's was near extinction, And we would tell them that. But we would say, we have a formula that if you listen to us and we embark on that formula, we will win.
Yeah.
But we're not going to win by ourselves. It's going to take a team effort.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, we reward everybody. Our reward systems are built around high performance levels, but everybody participates.
Yeah.
Most everybody was on incentives.
Yeah.
We had, I think in 16 or 18 years there, we raised wages every year but one.
Wow.
Remarkable.
Wow.
And that, and those people worked harder and smarter.
Right.
Because they knew if we recognized their performance, we would reward them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
walking into, like, for example, we're talking about Carter's per se. When you walked into Carter's, I know you said you never really walked into a business that you weren't comfortable with. But when you walked into Carter's,
it didn't have a brand.
Right.
If it didn't
Correct.
have a good brand, I had no interest.
Correct.
Because brand is, I don't know, it's a complicated subject matter, but a brand is so important to all walks of life. If you have a great brand, it's easier to sell to your customers.
That's true.
It makes life easier.
That's true.
If you have a great brand, your people recognize that. If you have a great brand, you can extend the brand.
Yeah.
You can get into other categories and grow. You have a greater growth opportunity with a great brand.
The funny
It
thing
makes
is
the job easier.
The funny thing is, though, a lot of people, I feel, use the word brand, in such a jargonistic, if that be a word, way, where they don't really understand what it truly means.
Well, Mike, most people think a brand is a name.
Right.
That's only one little part.
Right.
The brand is a set of promises. It's a set of that we're going to have the best quality. We're going to have the best product categories. We're going to have the best of everything.
Right.
A broad scope of performance.
Yeah. 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 So when you
you think, most people, I remember repeating myself, but most people think it's just a name, and it's a foolish mistake.
So with that being said, when you actually see it for what it is, you have to tell a story behind that name, right? What was the story that you developed for Carter's? Or did they have a story? Or was their story off kilter? Or were you optimistic about walking in and saying, you know what, this is a great company. They have a great story. Maybe they're just off. Maybe they're just, like, there's a reason why they're a year or whatever away from failing, right? And how do we retell that story? How do we sit
Usually the first thing you attack is the operations, because if they run a poor company, and they were, and everyone I went to, they were.
Yeah.
They ran high inventories, poor deliveries, so-so quality.
Yeah.
So you attack the low-hanging fruit first.
Mm-hmm.
You don't try to get too sophisticated and ahead of your strategy.
Yeah.
So you'd fix those things,
Yeah.
Put in better forecasting and don't have high inventories.
Yeah.
Like when I took the job at Carter's, the board that recruited me, that owned the company, I knew they had high inventories. I said, I'm not coming here unless we get rid of those inventories.
Yeah. Right.
I said, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And we debated, and I almost didn't come.
Right.
And I said, day one, those things are history. We're going to dump them.
Sold them.
Sell them at whatever we can get.
Right.
We got cents on the dollar.
Right.
And got rid of it. But what it did was it got our operations busy. People were working. You weren't laying people off. And it almost immediately lifted the morale of the business. So what you want to do is win early.
Yeah.
Win at a couple things early, so they say you're not full of it.
Right. Right.
So we never bragged on ourselves, but we bragged on our strategy.
Right. And the strategy was strong, so you should.
Low hanging fruit first.
Yeah.
Low hanging fruit. I'm repeating myself, but do the things that you can do pretty quickly, but they do make a difference.
Right.
And then you're going to build a company that gets more complicated, meaning more product categories, more of this, more of that to grow. But don't do that first.
Right.
because the company's not capable. We upgraded the management, a lot of them, and we trained a lot of people. You're going to tell people this is the way we run the railroad. You got to show them how.
Yeah.
It's not enough to say this is the way we do things.
Yeah.
We say we do these things because of this.
Yeah.
And the rewards are this and this.
Yeah.
We work like heck training people. Communications, I was really good at it.
Yeah.
And my team had been around with me for years, and they got good at it. People would always say about us, they can finish each other's sentences. And we
That
did.
good.
We did,
Yeah.
When we said, go do this, everybody knew what to do.
Yeah.
Because we had worked together, not in turnaround management, we had worked together in other roles with other companies, and then we met each other later.
Very symbiotic relationships you guys
Very.
had. Yeah.
Very symbiotic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what was
And a high degree of trust.
and respect.
Yes.
Yeah. I love the story that you would tell as a group at any given point if you guys had to make a decision to bring somebody into the company. If one didn't like.
Well, I learned from Walmart,
Right.
believe it or not, years ago, that they had a practice that Sam has implemented there. People of significant prominence in the company, fairly high jobs, everybody recruits them, interviews them.
Yeah.
And if one person out of 5 doesn't like them, you don't hire them.
Yeah.
And boy, would we have some battles
Yeah.
over it, because it's not as easy as it sounds, but we stuck by it, and it made a material difference because our batting average ended up good.
Yeah.
That's the key. The proof is in the pudding.
Well, I also like the thought behind that. It's like, listen, we don't really want any jerks working, at the company. We want to make sure.
Most people get fired over personality traits,
Yeah.
and not core skills.
Yeah.
Now that's a fact. Fred
Yeah.
didn't make that up.
Yeah, true.
That's a fact.
True.
So we live by that. We live by it.
Yeah.
But we battled.
Yeah.
I don't want everything to sound simplistic and simple. It's not. But we fought and we fought and we fought. One guy at one time, a pretty well-known person, said, "You guys remind me of the Chicago Bulls of Michael Jordan. Everybody pulls together, and Michael gives them hell all the time
Yeah. Yeah.
to get better."
That's true.
It was that way.
That's true.
If you were in our staff meetings, the top 5 people, you would think, man,
They don't like each other.
these guys are enemies. But we would come out and go in the same direction,
Yeah.
We'd get behind it with all the muscle we had.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I don't want to get ahead of the discussion, is that nobody could outwork us. I told my folks numerous times, we were together, I guess, more 20 years. I said, nobody could have done that. Nobody could have worked that hard for 20 years.
Yeah.
We really, I can't really explain to you how hard we worked. We were at work at 6 in the morning and there till 7 or 8 at night, and we never ate lunch.
Yeah.
I'm not promoting that for everybody.
No,
but
it's not good.
we would work through lunch.
Yeah.
And we may order a sandwich or something, but we never went out. I don't think I ever went to a restaurant outside the office unless I was on the road
Or entertaining. Yeah.
or entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. The the funny part about what you just said, though, as far as the amount of work, nobody worked as hard as we did. Like, we live in such a microwavable type of society today, where there are a lot of people, a lot of businesses think that there's a silver bullet, like it's a get rich quick scheme.
It's not.
Right.
It's the opposite.
Right. When it comes to actually building a brand.
It's opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard, and you got to have a world of patience. Brand building costs a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time. If you aren't willing to do those two things, don't even try it.
Yeah.
Because, Carter's was founded in 1865, the start of the Civil War, and here I'm coming there in 1992, and we're going to have to revitalize the company,
Yeah.
So it was, I'd say it took us 5 years to really get moving.
Really?
Yeah. Now, we've improved things now.
Sure.
I don't mean we sat on our thumbs.
No, I know.
And we didn't make any changes, but I'm talking about material things. You know, and at first, we would have a 5-year plan. Our owners required 5-year plans. We were the only public company in the United States that exceeded all 5-year plans.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? We never talked about it. We didn't want to brag.
Right.
Somebody say we got a great company. I said, oh, I don't know about that. let's keep chucking. We'll see.
But really, when you looked at it, though, at the time, who was your closest competitor? I mean, you were so ahead of the
Well, we had
pack.
some rough competitors, good competitors, but they weren't worth the crap.
Right.
We were bad.
Right.
So I always told my people, don't you worry about the competition. We're the problem.
We're our own demise, right?
Yeah, we found the enemy. It is us.
Yeah.
Really, that was the truth.
Right.
And once we accepted that and started doing the right things, we went rolling by them. Now, I never criticized a competitor. I don't want to sound that way.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd get on conferences with Wall Street and their performance and all that, and they would say, how are your competitors doing? I'd say, well, we watch them, but we don't talk about our competitors.
Yeah.
We keep our mouths shut and do our own knitting.
I think everybody that's been on the station, though, that's, and obviously from a smaller scale, I've asked every single entrepreneur that's been on the station, do they ever pay attention to their competition? And everyone has unanimously said, no, I don't really pay attention to it, right? But is that a bad thing, though?
That's a bad thing. We paid a lot of attention to the competition. We just didn't brag.
Right, I got you.
You know, when we started really rolling and widening the gap over them, we never said anything about that. Hey, I wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
And our staff wouldn't allow it.
Sure.
You know, we rode the same boat.
Yeah.
And it's just not good practice to be critical.
I want to go back
It comes back to haunt you.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier about the low-hanging fruit, right? Because a lot of people tend to go for the higher-hanging fruit when they're just launching any business, right? I want to go after that, and that's what I'm going to go after.
And they're ill-prepared.
Right.
Most of them are ill-prepared for it.
Right.
And they stumble badly.
Now, with the low-hanging fruit, though, does that, whether it's low or high, does that still hold true to the one thing that you always, I would say that you stand by? It's one of one of the strategies you've always taken is the power of fewer things, right? Is that fall in line with the power of fewer things? Like, let's go after the low-hanging fruit, what we can do right now.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Let's keep it simple.
It's not conflict.
Right.
It works well together. Because, when we came to Carter's, I may be repeating myself, but they had a huge inventory.
Yeah.
600,000 dozen with no orders. I mean, keep in mind that.
I've tried to compute
it's
it.
Like
but yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I told the board who was recruiting me, I said, we're getting rid of that inventory, and if you don't let me get rid of it, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
Because it will prevent us from being profitable.
Right.
So we took our licks in the first 30 days.
I like that.
We
took our licks.
We absorbed it,
Yeah.
And then we started making goods that we had orders for.
Yeah.
What a thing to do.
Yeah. I hear you.
Right.
Now, so
when you do something like that, your people admire you. The people at Carter's admired us for our guts.
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And my team knew damn well I wasn't coming if they didn't let us make that move.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't come over that. But I said, that keeps us from getting this job done. We'll be a number of years behind by not doing that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say we had a big battle, but we had some serious discussions over it. And once we got rid of that stuff, it was like a holiday.
It's like an open highway.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. When you did that, coming in, walking in the door in 92, and then seeing in 96 you became chairman of the board, that's a 4-year journey of being a private company to taking it public, right? Or am I wrong?
Hey, the first year, let me give you a little bit more history.
Yeah.
The first year, was this inventory problem,
Yeah.
which obviously put us in a cash flow problem.
Yep.
And we were projected to lose $30 million. We made $20 million. We made 20. Every company that I've taken over, there have been about 4 or 5 of them, we always beat that first year. So we don't wait around, you know. But you got to do things like I've just described in inventory. You got to be bold, and you can't be thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
You got to think what's good for the business. And you got to have guts. Yeah. It takes guts. I'm not bragging on them. We all had guts. That's one thing about us. We were not afraid of anything because we knew how to win. We had such self-confidence in one another. I'm repeating myself some, but it's such a big thing. You've got to have confidence in your comrades.
How important, you know, one of the things that you say, and I always appreciate this when you say, you know I'm repeating myself, but repetition is always key in learning. I
Yes.
as an athlete, I mean, you know,
Absolutely.
I constantly I run the mileage over and over again. I'll do it over and over again. It's muscle memory, right? But what does that do? What does that do for the entrepreneur, right? Let's take it out of big corporations for a second and dumb it down to the small entrepreneur. What does that do for them as far as the repetition? Because I notice a lot of entrepreneurs can get bored with their business, bored with their core. You guys seem to embrace it. We keep it simple. This is what we do.
There's a reason for that. When I went into that industry, I worked for 2 or 3 people that were miracle workers.
Yeah.
Les Wexner, who's the smartest guy I ever met on earth, and I was around him. I didn't work directly for him, but I was around him and learned from him. And there was a president of marketing in VF Corporation I spent a lot of time with, and I learned so many things from them.
Yeah.
And so I knew how to do it, but I knew how to listen.
Yeah.
And I was really good. I'm not here to brag on myself. Believe me.
I think you should.
You don't.
I think you should.
don't need to brag on yourself if you're 80 years old. Just listening. The power of observation. That's what I'm trying. I was really good at that. I was a great listener and learned from people who were smart as heck.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate. I got lucky. In the first, I'd say 6 or 7 years when I got in responsible jobs, I was around 2 or 3 geniuses. And I listened to everything they said. I made notes and all that. So it was a great learning curve. You know, I was way ahead of the curve because of them. I got lucky.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in good and bad luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, really.
No,
because I've worked for some real jerks, and but I got lucky for about 4 or 5 years. Man, what a growth I got because of hanging around those people.
So, which leads me to my next question.
But you got to pay attention.
You do.
You can't just hang around them. You know, you got to really listen and practice it.
Yeah.
And try it out and see if it works for you. Confirm that it works for you.
Right. You know, one of the other things that, I was going to ask as we talk about this mind of the CEO, the mind of the chief executive officer, one of the things that you mentioned is you got to listen, right? But how else do you think that you learn?
Shopping stores.
Yeah.
Getting out and talking to your customers. You know, the first thing, I always say the first thing, but it really was one of the early things. I went to see every customer. We went as a team, and we took our whippings, man.
Yeah.
Because we were not performing in the early days.
Yeah.
And because I remember telling a couple of CEOs of big corporations, that we were doing business with, I said, I'll tell you something. We're going to fix this damn thing.
Yeah.
I'm not here to give you a long speech.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you we're going to fix it. Trust me, and it won't be long. And they did.
Yeah. And that was a promise.
It was a promise.
Yeah.
It's a brand promise.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of the brand promises
Right.
you make.
Right. So with that being said, you went out, you listened, you heard them.
Traveled.
You traveled.
Hey, traveled 30 days in a row to meet the top customers.
Yeah, I remember you told me the story that you
all
guys were on the
day
road.
for 30 days
Yeah,
in a
for a
row
month.
to meet them all, tell them what, listen to them, of course.
Yeah,
That's paramount.
yeah,
But also to tell them what we're going to do to fix the business,
right,
and that we weren't going to be slow about it.
right. So then you and your team
I took the worst chewing on earth from the president of Sears. Now, Sears was pretty good in those days.
Yeah.
Oh, God, what a whipping. I was in his office, and he beat on me for an hour.
What did he say?
Just, what the hell's the matter with you jerks? You know, you're doing this and doing that, and I've had enough of it. And I came out of that meeting with my director of marketing, and I said, whew.
Tails
said-
between both your legs.
I said, I hope you got the message I did. And then he's the first one that came to us and said, what a remarkable turnaround.
Wow.
Well, we went,
That's impressive, though.
I don't know. I don't want to talk too much here, but you got to find out what they need and how fast you can get it.
Yeah.
Hey, and don't make a damn promise you can't live up to.
Yeah.
One of our mantras was promises made or promises kept.
Yeah.
And we live by it.
Yeah.
And if somebody told me something, in those days I had a good memory.
Yeah.
If somebody told me they were going to do something and in those days and didn't do it, I knew they didn't do it
Yeah.
before they got to me.
Yeah.
Because I was always a penchant for, look, if you tell me you can't get something done, you're way ahead of the game because I'll help you.
Yeah.
If you don't tell me, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah. When everything was in with Carter's got to be in this homeostasis type of situation when everything kind of flowed and worked. What was your biggest year that you remember?
I can't remember. We started rolling quick. And,
Yeah.
The first 2 years were great.
Yeah.
We had to move offshore the third year.
Yeah.
We were almost all domestic production. Factories in the United States. Slow, high cost. That next year we took everything we had and went offshore and never missed a stroke
Really?
and lowered the cost incredibly.
Logistically, though, that must have been
Well,
crazy.
we were trained at it.
Yeah.
I can't say enough. Don't try things you're ill prepared for.
Right.
But we had people who had spent time in the Orient. We had people who really knew that game over there, and they were doers, you know.
Yeah.
We've got people that could do things, not give great speeches.
Yeah.
You know, we had not much respect for a lot of great speeches and no doing.
Yeah.
You know, just the opposite.
Yeah.
So we surrounded hey, people started wanting to work for us. That helped, you know. We would
Just a
get
little
people that, you know, saw what we were doing and they'd want to come work for us. And that's the ultimate compliment.
What do you think was your biggest throughout your entire, tenure as a CEO? What do you think was your biggest failure?
We recruited 2 people late in my career and didn't stick to this formula of voting 5 people. And they were both duds, and they really hurt us.
Yeah.
And they were in prominent positions, and you couldn't change fast enough without it hurting.
Yeah.
So that really hurt us.
Yeah.
Now we got rid of them and upgraded and pulled it out, but it cost us a couple years.
Right.
Yeah,
When-
it was rough.
When you get to that point, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, recruiting people and then trying to reel back because you realize, well, maybe we didn't make the right decision. And then we live in a world right now where emotions and feelings kind of dictate a lot. But when it comes to protecting the name on the building, protecting the brand, right? Is that hard to do, saying, that was a wrong decision and sorry, but this is not the place for you? Like, is it difficult to reel back and say, I made a mistake, let's just, forget
that
feelings?
person out?
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, if you don't have a feeling of bitter disappointment when you fire somebody, there's something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because some of them are, they're not all bad people. There are a few.
Sure.
But just some of them, you got the wrong guy in the wrong job,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a disappointment.
Yeah. What about? I'll flip it and ask the other question. Your biggest success. It's a hard one.
I don't know. You know, I hate to sound braggart, but I never had a performance review. I always got A student.
Really?
I never had a bad performance review.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I hardly ever had one. We always did so well.
Yeah.
Everywhere I was.
Yeah.
You know, I was a lucky dude. I was trained by the best. My mother taught me fashion and color. I knew when garments were ugly,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah.
And I would speak up. My mother was an outspoken person. She taught me to, by God, if it ain't right, speak up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I got some early training and excellent training. So I just never had a rough time with reviews. We always did well.
All right. Why don't you give yourself a review right now? What's one word that describes you?
Persuasive.
Persuasive.
Yeah. I'm not going to convince you that I'm not bragging, I know, but I didn't lose much.
Right.
But I didn't go for foolishness.
Right. Right.
I thought through things very intensely, and when we made decisions, I didn't look over my shoulder. I
Yeah.
just didn't do it. I have never been back to any place I ever worked. I'm not sure why, but I don't want to go back and say, well, I could do this better than they're doing it. Right. I don't want to be that kind of player.
Right.
I've never been back. I just said, we did well, let's move on.
Is that a quality you think, I know we described you, but is that a quality you think most CEOs should have?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the older you get, the less nerve you got. The older you get, the smaller you know what gets. And it's true.
Are you saying you're
you
not
don't
as
have-
persuasive now?
You don't have near the guts that you had when you were younger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worrying more or you're more compassionate or whatever. It's probably some of all of that, you know. But I never look back.
Never. That's pretty cool. I think.
No, I was the guest speaker, commencement speaker at that military school I graduated from, and I hadn't been back for 30 years.
Wow.
And I was a speaker, and I haven't been back since. I just think that most people go back just to show off and say, I would have done it that way.
Yeah.
I never want to be accused that I was a better leader than this new guy is.
Yeah.
Even if he was bad, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah. That's good.
Right.
I think another quality that persuasion brings, though, to go back to one of the things that I love talking about with you is stories that some of these companies and some of these brands have told, and we could talk about outside of Carter's because you and I have conversations all the time about how great some outside brands are doing with their stories, right? Definitely an important quality to have, being persuasive to your audience, correct? As far as a brand is concerned.
Yeah, and a teacher. I miss saying that. I always had the feeling from a young man that you really should teach what you know.
Sure.
And it's bull if you don't know it.
Yeah.
And they know you don't know it.
Yeah.
People figure it out in a hurry.
Yeah.
But I've always believed that great leaders are great teachers, by and large.
Yeah.
And I was really good at that. But I worked at it, and I trained at it. So it wasn't like I was born a great teacher. Just circumstances and habitat and people I'd been around, I just learned a lot, and I believed you should share that. So many leaders are selfish, you know. They don't want to do it because they're afraid they'll lose their job.
Yeah.
You'll be better than they are.
Yeah.
Or they'll be better than you are. And I never had that feeling. I love to teach. I just love to do it. And I taught everything. And I did that even in my hobbies, you know. I had hobbies, you know, a second life of championship bird dogs and champion horses and all that. I ran them the same way.
Yeah.
You know, we always said we wanted a few good people, not a bunch of people. I had 8 dogs, in competition at one point.
Yeah.
And we'd won 37 championships, setting all kinds of records. And the guy that was kind of my partner, he's a trainer, he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I got a dog over here that's unbelievable. I said, okay, we have 8 dogs. Bring that dog in and get rid of one. We're not adding.
Yeah.
And he thought, he said, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I read it the same way, you know.
Yeah.
Just everything.
Yeah. Simple.
Keep it simple. Well, complexity, I've told you a couple stories in the past, but people think they're smarter when they're more complex.
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Simplicity is
Yeah.
important. I know you know it from your career, but you know the great music in the world are simple lyrics,
Yeah. We talked about
beautifully done.
that. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, and the more screaming and the more words, the less important it is.
Yeah.
By and large, now.
We actually talked about that because we were sitting there thinking about when we were talking about doing the interview. We were talking about songs,
Yeah.
and we are trying to pick out lyrics that were very simple versus the complex type of lyrics, right? And all the great musicians had
Hey,
the simple.
I can go back a long time. White Christmas is still popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing is more simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Or we talked about YMCA by the Village People,
Right.
how simple that was.
Right.
Or Ray Charles had Georgia on my mind, right? How simple that was. How emotionally charged that got you from being so simple, right? So
You trigger thoughts as we talk, Mike, but I always, if I had a big speech to give,
yeah,
I always did something that would get me wound up.
right.
Ready? I remember one time it had snowed a foot, and I ran out and ran about a mile in a foot of snow, practicing my speech out loud. I'd do stuff like that to get myself going.
Yeah, charged
You
up. Yeah, 100%. So, in your opinion right now, right, who are, outside of Carter's, who's telling some really good stories right now that you really can appreciate?
Brands, you mean?
Yeah, brands. Yeah.
Well, Ram.
Love it.
Yeah, they tell a really good story. And
Why do you think their story's great?
because they had a great leader
Yeah.
who came in there and took over, in the crisis in '08, and he took over the company, Chrysler, and he was smart enough to know that there's a big difference between Ram and Chrysler.
Yeah.
Ram is like sleepy, right? Buses for children. No offense now, but by the way, let me before I get off that subject. We did something at Carter's that was really good emotionally, and we did a video of it and all that, and presented it to our people and its customers, and it was about birth to bus.
Okay.
That's what we called our brand.
Yeah.
Babies, newborns, till they get on the school bus. And when they get on that school bus, those mothers are
Crying like you wouldn't believe.
Right. So we've used that. We used that, in our marketing. I'm losing my train of thought, but
We were talking about
different things, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
How emotionally charged that stuff got you as far as the brands telling stories. So Chrysler was the bus to, we were talking about the Ram being the non-sleepy brand versus the Chrysler sleepy brand.
well, I used to show this video of the basketball player. Oh God, the great one, Boston.
Larry Bird. Yeah, Larry Bird.
I showed it to all of our people, 100% of our people in the company, and it was about his life and all that. And one thing that hit me emotionally in that, it still does, telling the story. His father had committed suicide.
Yeah.
And this commentator, some jackleg, he said, he'd been to Boston, and you know what his career was in Boston. He said, your father would be proud of you now. He said, he was proud of me then, buddy. That's emotional.
Right.
It's emotional for me because I knew he meant it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? We've talked about.
We talked about what else? We talked about farmers insurance.
Farmers insurance.
We're digging their story.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, it's real.
Yeah.
First thing is, it's believable.
Yeah.
It's not baloney.
Yeah. I love the way that their TV ads come across. Like, you know,
We've seen it. We've done it.
yeah, and we'll cover it. You know, that's the story. And then obviously there's a lot of tech that brands that are telling great stories. Apple, obviously,
Apple's had some great ones.
huge.
They got one recently I really like.
Google also tells really great emotionally charged stories. You know, so
Well, here's the problem. Most CEOs aren't very emotional.
right.
That they're typically numerical people. I'm not saying they're all like that.
Is that historically?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been going on since I was before God was born.
Okay.
And they don't have much humor,
Right.
and they don't even look at their advertising.
Right.
I was watching some with my wife the other night, and I said, you know what? That CEO has never looked at that damn commercial, and it's a piece of junk.
Right.
All right, and they paid a ton for it.
Yeah.
You know a lot about
Sure,
that, and the
sure.
prices that to go with them.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So
But I'll say, what I always said, I don't know if I'm right. If you're going to get a CEO in an apparel business, or maybe in any business, get somebody that's in love with product. You know,
True.
in love with the product.
Yeah.
You know, they like to see it on people.
yeah.
They like to put their hands on it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, because you've also followed it, and we'll talk about tech for a second, because you know, we could both relate to this particular CEO and this transition of. We talked about Apple when Steve Jobs was at the helm versus Tim Cook being at the helm. Steve Jobs, I would say, I'm not saying Tim Cook isn't. I think he's passionate, but nobody was as passionate as Steve Jobs about their units, right?
Crazy passionate. Hey, he was the Donald Trump of that world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, true.
He would say he was worse than Trump.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, he could get away with it because it was a private company then.
Yeah.
You're not a public company.
Yeah.
But he verged on being a maniac, but he was in such love with product.
Yeah.
You know, and he made you come up with good product.
Right.
You better not come in the room with that idea.
Right.
Right?
So, but the crazy part is there's CEOs like a Steve Jobs who just, like you said, totally just immerses themselves. They immerse themselves into their world. He was, you know, it was iPhone, it was MacBook, it was, I mean, he lived in that particular space. And then you have the CEOs that don't. Are those the CEOs, or are those the companies that tend to struggle, you think?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
the head of the helm doesn't necessarily live inside of that world as much as they
Well,
should.
they don't take as much risk because they figure they got to do well. Now, part of it is the way we run the businesses in this country.
Yeah.
Public companies.
Yeah.
You know, we got to have a certain record every month, and every month, you know, you can't take enough risk. So that's hard on those guys. You know, we were private to a number of these things. We were private. And when we went public, it was a different world.
Yeah.
You had to prove you had to go to the bathroom.
And flush the toilet.
I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. Hey, I'd never want to be with a public company again in my life.
Just so you,
Not that I would, but
right. But you would suggest, like, if somebody was on the fence.
you got to let them take some risk.
Yeah.
And you got to listen to crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know the answer. There have been plenty of crazy people did all right.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's very, very
Yeah,
true.
I say crazy. I don't mean literally, but, you know, just eccentric.
Yeah.
And
Now, another part of our conversation's always been not only the person being in love with what they're doing, but being very true to the core of what their business is, right?
yeah, you got to stick to your knitting. You got to find a way that you're, what's the term we use? Defend your core.
Defend your core. Yeah.
First thing you do is make sure you got lunch
Yeah.
before you fix dinner.
Right.
You know, you really got to think that way, you know. So it's a big part of execution. And always revisit the core first.
Yeah.
First.
Right.
Not second.
Yeah.
First.
Right.
And then say, let's play off of that now. Look at alternative core, and then look at fashion that you think one day might be core.
Yeah.
So the three dimensions you have to look at in product: core, alternative core, and then fashion, but not off the charts. So you can test it, but you're not wrecking the ship. You
Right.
test it, and then it moves to alternative core. And I was trained to do that, and I have a couple of geniuses in the business, and it works.
Now, when you say
Mickey Drexler, who rebuilt the Gap,
Yeah.
I got to know him really well, and he was a master of core. He called it democratic styling because he's a left winger,
yeah,
but that's all right.
yeah,
But it's the same thing though. He was a master at core.
yeah,
And my boss at VF initially was president of marketing, and he was just a damn genius at that stuff.
yeah.
And I listened and studied him, and he read a couple of books that I read, and they were more than worthwhile.
So your stance is defend the core at all cost.
Yeah, one daughter was a good tennis player,
Yeah,
and you know her.
yeah,
And she went to this tennis clinic in Atlanta, and the coach there said, I want to change your game. And I thought, what's that all about? And I listened to some of his teachings with her. I said, you know what? I'll bet you would have changed Jimmy Connors and Bjorn Borg's stroke. He said, I sure would. I said, we're out of here.
yeah.
That's the last time I've seen that guy.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because she wasn't moving away from core. She had an alternative core.
yeah.
In principle, that's what she had.
Sure.
And she was really good at it. But he just wanted to change the hell out of it because he's a new kid on the block.
Yeah.
Wanted to make a change
Yeah.
just for the hell of it.
And I mean, I know we're talking about Jessica for a second, but you even use the example of Pete Sampras too, as well.
Well,
Right?
Pete, who I admire.
Nothing against Jessica; she's an amazing tennis player, by the way.
Pete, phenom,
Yeah,
And I followed him closely, but he had a two-handed backhand in his early years.
yeah,
And he got this coach, I forget his name, and he said, you're never going to win Wimbledon with that two-handed backhand. You got to go back to one hand. And Pete did, and he had a disastrous year or two. But then, the rest of the story.
yeah,
Yeah, he's a superstar. And he had a great serve, a great second serve, great net game, and great forehand.
yeah,
Okay backhand. An idiot would come in there and work on his backhand.
yeah,
Inordinate amount of time on his backhand.
yeah,
What he should have done is work on one of these other good strokes and make it even better,
right,
right? Because he could beat the hell out of anybody with the strokes he had,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But you tend to say though, a lot of times, whether it's an athlete or a business owner, if you get bored with the core, or if you get bored with your core,
Retire.
essentially what you're doing, you get
Retire.
well. That's what you should
Yeah,
do.
get out of it.
But what you're doing is you're actually being lazy.
It is
essentially.
lazy.
And I would argue, sometimes I argue that point with you, where I would say, well, maybe there's the boredom of the repetition, constantly doing it over and over again. Maybe there is some kind of need to change, or maybe veer off to the left, and you would always defend your stance and saying there's no way you should
I
do
don't
that.
want you to misunderstand.
No,
you
100%.
should improve your core.
Right.
That's what I mean by defending the core.
Yeah.
You can't stay with the same stroke forever
At all.
because they pick up on it.
Right.
They can predict you. They can predict your stroke.
The core product for Carter's, for example, was the onesie. We talked about that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We all know what it is. All right? And it came in one color at one point.
White.
White. All right? And how many of those things did you guys ship at one point?
Well, I think now they ship about
More.
40 or 50 million a year.
But okay, so that was the core piece. Explain the neighborhood what you mean by alternative core. How do you get the onesie?
That's where you take that onesie
Yeah.
and you try it in 6 new colors.
Okay.
That's alternative. But you don't get rid of the other colors, and you're trying to find out which is going to prevail.
Right.
So you got to cover your bases.
Right.
That's what I mean by it. Or you find a new style, a new body style. I can't think of a name now.
Right.
And you try that, and you don't bet the ranch on it, but you just test it.
Yeah.
So any good companies today have really good testing. It's beyond me how many recalls the automobile industry has. And they got all the time in the world to test and all the kind of damn money, and that damn door handle falls off. Right?
Yeah.
Then your car, the door handles fell off
Yeah.
on both doors
Yeah.
in 1 week.
Yeah.
Now you know there's something wrong with the process there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Right.
So the features and attributes are essentially part of things you can change within the
generally
core.
speaking, features are like buttons and zippers, and attributes are color
Right.
and soft hands.
Right.
You know, like the style you were talking about.
The onesie?
The onesie
Uh-huh.
is. Hey, we used to say our onesies are soft as a baby's butt.
Yeah.
Really, it's just luxurious to put your hands on it.
Yeah.
But it's inexpensive too, though. See,
Yeah.
the key is getting that relationship correct.
Yeah.
Price versus benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So when that's all said and done and you develop this line of alternative core, you test it and you see what sticks.
Yes.
Okay. And
you
then
actually get your customer to take in some and try it.
right.
And you've built good relationships with that customer. You're going to stand behind it.
Yeah.
If it flops, you take it back.
Part of the promise.
Right.
Part of the brand
Right.
promise. Okay, so we have core, we have alternative core. This is the one thing that a lot of people tend to gravitate to, but it never seems to stick, which is fashion, right? And fashion, we're talking fashion in your world. I think fashion overall could be attributed to just trying something that's very trendy within the business, any business. But for you, fashion doesn't work because?
Not enough people wear them.
Yeah.
Hey, when the jeans business, I went to Lee, they'd gotten in trouble. That was one of my first endeavors. And I went there, and Lee Jeans, had built their reputation on women's jeans.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, there were no women's jeans in the country.
Wow.
Nobody made them. Levi made the men's, and Wrangler made the cowboys.
Wow.
So Levi gave up that, and Lee took over the women's business, and really we built a good business with the women's, and but prior to that, when I got there, they had all these exotic colors. I mean, hell, I don't know who would wear those things. Now this is a true story. So I came in, there's all their salespeople and marketing people. I said, these colors are gone. I wasn't voting. These are gone. And they said, what are we going to do? I said, sell the right ones.
Yeah.
Sell your core. Get out there and beat the bushes and say, this is what this brand is all about.
Yeah.
We're not all about this exotic stuff. Hey, immediately took off.
Yeah.
I got lucky in the early days.
Yeah. I got you.
Some of it's good luck.
So fashion is there a place for it though?
Sure.
Now, is there a place
Yeah,
for it?
what you want to do is you want to build, don't hold me to these numbers because I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But you want 70% core, 20% alternative core, and 10% fashion. You definitely want it in there because there is a customer for it, but it's not high volume.
Right. So, but it does help. It does help the brand.
It helps you be a better creator of core.
Right.
That's the idea. It's a circle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to confuse you, but
No, not at all.
you definitely want it in there. You don't want to look flat.
Right. Here's another question for you. With all that you've done, right? I always wonder this about you too, as well. Like, are you happy where you ended up? And what I mean by that is,
Yeah.
like, do you feel like, I did everything that I wanted to do?
I don't think anybody quite feels that way. You did. Everybody's had disappointments,
Yeah.
and you look back over your life and you say, "I wish I'd have done it this way." The key is not dwelling on that crap.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. But if you could, though, if somebody said, we can go back in time right now, right, throughout your career, if you looked at everything that you did, and you could change one thing. This is just a guess. We're just having banter talk, right? What would it be? What would be that one thing as an executive officer that you did that you said, I'd take that back? And not hiring, like a decision that was made or something.
I could get too demanding.
Yeah.
I could get too demanding.
Yeah.
And confrontational. Not every day now, but I'd like to shave those I don't call them qualities, but weaknesses.
Right.
Yeah, fortunately, I could get mad and I was over in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I never carried a grudge in my life, and I met a bunch of jerks.
Yeah.
But I never had a grudge in my life,
Yeah.
and I never had those kinds of problems. And if I got into an argument with somebody, you know, we usually ended up shaking hands, but I didn't have to get that fired up over it.
What's the one?
It's hard to be passionate and not be a little abrasive.
Yeah, I would say that.
It's hard to do. It's a fine line, I think, of walking that line.
I don't think people should take it personal, though. They should appreciate. I think people should appreciate what you're, not you, the person, but what the person's doing and what they, what their goal and their focus is. I mean, I could appreciate the fact that you were passionate about Carter's and you were passionate about the direction that you were going.
What they look at in retrospect after a number of years is the company was doing $200 million, lost $60 million, was going out of business the next year. It now is $4.5 billion and super profitable.
Jaw drop.
I mean, that wasn't all me. But
no. I mean, jaw dropping moment.
The guy that came in after me, he is doing a really good job, and we left him in good shape.
Yeah.
Because the key of succession is don't screw the guy coming in.
Yeah. Don't put concrete in the toilet, right?
Right. Don't do that. Right.
Yeah. So, but as you were leaving, you have somebody else, your successor coming in. It was a very interesting time because that was right around when technology started really playing a huge role in commerce.
Beginning.
Right?
We had no knowledge of that.
Right.
That was something that the new team had to learn.
Right. How much of...
And it's been important.
I was going to say, how much of technology do you think is needed?
I think they've done a lot. I don't know the details because I don't go in there. I don't go in there to learn what they're doing. First of all, it's secret.
Right, yeah.
So I don't want anybody telling me anything I shouldn't know.
Right. But as a whole, though.
But it's become very big and important to the company, and they've made a lot of progress. And they've done a lot with, what's the term?
Analytics.
Analytics.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
They can predict how many blue sweaters they sell on Sunday.
Yeah. At 3:15 p.m. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They get it finite.
Right.
Yeah.
But some of
we
that,
didn't have that when I was there.
But some of that, though, takes a little bit of the gut feeling out of it, though.
Oh,
don't you think?
It's the biggest argument in the world. It makes the merchants feel like they're inferior.
Right.
There's no gut feelings anymore.
Right.
You don't trust us. That's what they would say. Why'd you hire me if you're going to get a machine?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to it.
But I mean, we can argue it though, because I feel like there are times that, the numbers say one thing, but I feel like if we went this direction, it would connect emotionally a little bit better. Essentially taking us.
I remember Les Wexner when Limited was rolling, man.
Yeah.
And they had this sweater.
Yeah.
I forget what it was called. It had a name. And it was booming. And it had been on the shelf in a couple years, and, man, it was still booming. And the head merchant went to Les. Les was he was the founder of the company.
Yeah.
And she said, this thing has run its course. And he said, no, it hasn't. And she said, look, it's run its course. I'm going to take it out. He said, lady, I'm the CEO. You're fired.
Yeah. There's my gut feeling.
Was rough.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't do that, but
right. But that's the gut feeling that.
Yeah, you gotta. That's what I say about guts. You just gotta have. You gotta have guts in business. Now, I don't mean abrasiveness, but you gotta stand up for yourself. And you're going to have a number of times you're not sure which way it's going.
What do you do then?
Well, you pull some more guts.
Let's just pull out some more.
Go to the restroom.
Come back.
Right.
Think about it. Take a coffee break, baby.
Yeah, really.
No.
Yeah.
Outside of working, because obviously we.
Most people you can't argue with, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. That's a.
Outside of
They could argue with me. I argue too much.
well, you love debate though.
Yeah, I love debate, but I'm saying some people can't stand it.
It's not a good thing. I think debate is needed.
They don't like any argument. I do too.
Yeah, debate is needed.
My God.
I mean, even on a.
They all talk about the Congress these days. They should have been around when Thomas Jefferson and all those guys, Patrick Henry and all those were screaming vulgarities at one another,
Right.
threatening their lives. And
Yeah.
all. They don't even know the history,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Hell, it ain't worse. Now, a lot of people would disagree with me over that. It's not worse. It's always been bad.
Yeah, that's true. It's just I think today technology just makes it amplified that we see and hear it so
you got
much.
more facts in that business. This business that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
you got more facts today's with it.
Yeah.
You can make better judgments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You work a lot. We talked about that, and you and your team have worked quite a bit. You know, aside from dogs, what else do you like to do? Like, what's your outside life like? What do you love to do?
I spent a lot of time with a busy mind, just thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was in a health clinic for heart trouble, and I spent hours upon hours thinking about how I'd run that joint. I just wanted to get my hands on it, but I knew I wouldn't get the opportunity. I also knew I was too old.
The comment box was filled. So, but I mean, you enjoy. At one point, you enjoyed riding horses. You enjoyed.
Well, I can't do that stuff now.
Before.
Oh, I love riding horses, and I competed in them, and I competed in field trialing, and you know, I was always very competitive. I was a gracious competitor. You know, funny as I say, you know, I'm pretty good at arguing, but I was never a bad loser.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I didn't lose a lot, but when I did,
I wouldn't cry about it.
No, I didn't. Never criticized the winner.
Would you beat yourself up over it?
No.
No.
I didn't like it.
Right.
I didn't lose any sleep over it.
Not even trying to figure out how to not lose again.
I'm talking about worry.
That's
you
a different
lose sleep,
thing.
you worry.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a different thing.
I would definitely think about how I was going to approach it the next time.
Hey, what are you curious? What are you watching on TV right now?
In Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. You just finished watching Narcos, or you're in the middle of that?
I watched that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I watched Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix has had some good shows, and I watched that.
Struggling business right now, speaking of Netflix. I think they're
in trouble.
Yeah, they're in a little bit of trouble.
I don't know if they know it, but they're in trouble. And Disney's going to wipe them off the map.
Hey, the crazy part is, though, you'd wonder why, because, you know, you think they have a great story, right? Original movies. You can watch it.
Anything you do in business, I'm glad you had brought this up.
Yeah.
You got to think about how do you prevent the competition from taking it away from you? And you start that early on. Is it an easy entry or a hard entry to compete with you?
Yeah.
We used to say, if we ran our strategy, it's hell to beat us because we're so fast in the new products. And I don't remember all the story now.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. But you got to really ascertain how hard or how easy is it to keep this business out front.
Yeah. It's difficult.
You know, you got to look over your shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to get cocky and thinking you got the bull by the horns. It doesn't work that way. Eventually it doesn't.
You end up losing.
Well, look at that. Secretary of the Treasury today said
Amazon
has
destroyed the
retail
retailers.
world.
Yeah.
Now, he should have kept his mouth quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was stupid, but nevertheless, he said it.
Yeah.
But it might be true.
I would disagree. I think
him?
Well, I think what he said was untrue because I feel like Amazon has it's helped.
Well, they're not dishonest.
Who's not dishonest?
They're just beating you. They're better.
Right.
They're beating on better.
What Amazon is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they've also created a new form of distribution for other businesses.
Creative geniuses.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, look at Microsoft. They were getting pounded.
Yeah.
And they brought this new guy in. He's done a marvelous job. Now, some of them don't make it and some of them do, but ain't that business?
Yeah, it is.
Ain't that capitalism at its finest?
That's part of the game.
Yeah.
Right? You got to know how to play the game. You know? So with that being said, I think when he said that, I would disagree completely because
he just wanted to make some damn noise.
Yeah.
That's what people do, They need headlines.
I think I mentioned this to you earlier today when we were talking too, because I said, I actually compared it to a song. The song was TV killed the radio star, right? Video killed the radio star.
Yeah.
Do you think Amazon killed the brick and mortar star?
Sure.
There's no reason to.
Did severe damage.
Yeah. But you still think, though, it's still necessary to have a location.
Of course. Yeah.
Diversify.
Yeah.
Online, some locations.
Proper balance. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is a hint of a healthy company.
I think so.
So then here's a question for you that's not on the sheet.
Keep in mind that the guy that made this criticism's never had a job other than a government job. Not that I don't have respect for some government people.
Yeah. Who would you say, you've mentioned some of them, but who else would you say are some of your mentors, people that you've looked up to in this business? You've mentioned the VF Corp president or CEO.
Yeah, he was the president.
Who else?
And Limited, Les Wexner.
Right, he was a mentor. Yeah.
And Gap's Mickey Drexler.
He was good.
Brilliant merchants.
We've also talked about.
Brilliant merchants.
What do you think about Ralph Lauren?
Well, he's been brilliant. I don't know. They've been struggling of late, but
'cause I know we've also talked about him before.
I think
in the
they're
past.
making a comeback, but I don't have many facts.
Right, but at one point he was great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
He just had such a sense of product. He knew what would sell.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had the pizzazz with him.
yeah,
He had the marketing skills.
yeah.
I mean, he made a whole damn book of himself. I've still got it, of him dressed up in this and that, and on his horses, his ranch in Colorado. It's spectacular.
Yeah,
But it's imagery.
yeah.
It's really cool what he did. And I don't know how they're doing now. He's late 70s, so I don't know what his energy level is.
If there's an entrepreneur out there listening, just what would be the one piece of advice, just general, that you'd tell them?
Be a better listener.
Yeah,
Be a better listener.
yeah,
Because there are more smart people than you realize. And
you don't know it all.
you don't know it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tell them.
Here's the last question. I always close out our interviews with asking this one question. I've been on this personal quest trying to figure out, like a personal thesis, if you would. How do you make community better, badder, faster, stronger, right? In a world right now where we have so many crazy things going on, what does it take, in your words, to just have better community?
Well, I think I feel very strongly and have for many years that the best way to lead is the collaborative style. You got to find a way to talk sensibly and, good, I hate to say good manners. It sounds kind of corny, but you really got to show people respect, even if you don't agree with them. And it's so vicious now. I mean, you know more about it than I do.
Oh, 100%.
So my recommendation is find a way to communicate in a collaborative style. Set up something in the community and say, let's meet.
Yeah.
5, 6 people. I don't know what the number is.
Yeah.
Let's meet and talk about the traffic.
Yeah.
Whatever the heck it is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know real issues are in your
so
neighborhood.
so many different topics going on, but I think it's more of a general, like how do you create just a better environment,
Well, I think it's openness and good dialogue. It's not a bigger donation. We got to know that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly,
every donation I ever gave, and I gave some good ones. The next week they wanted another one, but it didn't solve many problems.
I want to say thank you for sitting with me and having a chat.
It's been great.
On the station.
No, it's been great.
Any other plans? You're gonna, open up some other major?
No.
I'm really just jabbing at him right now.
You know what? I'm a realist. I'm too old.
Yeah, no, I got you. Well,
It takes such an energy level.
It does. It does. Well, thank you once again, and for everybody that's listening. Honestly, I couldn't be more honored to have you in here, and just hearing and sharing your wisdom with the neighborhood means so much to me. So thank you so much.
Mike.
All right.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to Decatur FM. Once again, we are Any and Everything Decatur, and we will talk to you soon. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Decatur FM.